I'm going to fact-check Tyler Cohen a bit on his video titled "Republicans Move to Enable Third Term for Trump." Generally speaking, I think it's best to describe what is going on accurately so you can rationally deal with the situation.
Capping off a week of groveling sycophants clawing their way into Trump's good graces, Republican Congressman Andy Ogles has taken the cake, having just introduced an amendment to the Constitution to allow Donald Trump to run for a third term in office. The resolution that he introduced would amend the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, which currently limits presidents. Now, a few points here. Yes, this is nakedly unconstitutional.
It's not unconstitutional to initiate the amendment process. That's just nakedly false. It's just straight up naked. The Constitution provides for how to amend the Constitution. If amending the Constitution was nakedly unconstitutional, why is the amendment process written in the Constitution? Why are there any amendments? If the desire to amend the Constitution as it pertains to presidential term limits is unconstitutional, how and why was the 22nd Amendment passed in 1947 and ratified in 1951? 5 years after the 22nd Amendment was ratified, efforts in Congress were made to repeal it. Since then, there have been 54 joint resolutions introduced to repeal the two-term presidential election limitation, and such efforts have been supported by Democrats and Republicans at various times. So while I would not support repealing the 22nd Amendment, I think term limits are necessary for every elected office and should be instituted in Congress as well. It is absolute misinformation to suggest introducing such a resolution is nakedly unconstitutional, even though this particular resolution is written specifically to suit Trump's circumstances, which is quite short-sighted and lame.
No, there is not enough support right now to amend the Constitution, for which you need a two-thirds majority vote in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then ratification by 3/4 of the states.
Exactly. It has no chance of passing, so why are you acting like something so dangerous is happening? As I mentioned before, this isn't the first time people talked about this issue or introduced a related resolution, and there is no chance any amendment would pass right now given how split the country is, so why act like the sky's falling? I mean, the sky is falling, but it's not falling because of this.
But most importantly, none of that means that Republicans won't still try.
Okay, let them try. Let anyone try to introduce legislation. Isn't that supposed to happen in a democracy? And in a democracy, people are going to introduce legislation that you don't like. So then you don't vote for it or something. I don't know. Do the democracy thing.
This isn't even a new idea among Republicans. For quite a while now, Trump himself has been hinting at the idea of staying in office for as long as he wants.
I'm sure Trump would love to spend the rest of his days as the King of America, but alas, that isn't going to happen. There will be no amendment to allow him to run again. A presidential election will happen in 2028. A new president will be elected. Trump's term of office will expire and the new president will be sworn into office, and that will be the end of that. In the next clip, Brian is going to talk about a resolution a Democrat in the House wanted to introduce to uphold oath of office and reaffirm support for the 22nd Amendment regarding term limits.
The resolution was designed to get Republicans on the record to support the 22nd Amendment because it was so utterly predictable that Republicans were going to attempt to do something like Andy Ogles is doing right now. And yet, what has Mike Johnson done? Well, he refused to even let it go for a vote.
I think this is a very stupid and unfruitful strategy of the Democrats to combat Trump, getting people to reaffirm their oaths and pledge their allegiance to past amendments is absolutely time-wasting and political theater. You are allowed to introduce resolutions to amend the Constitution. You are not required to take an oath that you will never do so, and if you do so, you are somehow breaking your oath to the Constitution. This type of BS does not win elections or make any fringe voters change their minds. I realize part of politics is shaming people and wasting time in Congress doing political theater, but this is, as they used to say, weak sauce.
Right now, we have someone in the Oval Office who is actively taking every measure to give himself more power, more money, and to hurt those who oppose him. I want to be clear, he is not going to be inhibited by norms or precedent. He will take whatever he wants and never let it go. And what he wants is power. And if you think that he's not going to exploit every loophole in pursuit of that, then you've been asleep at the wheel for the better part of a decade.
Well, everyone already knows what he's about and how he gets down. The Republicans don't care. In fact, many of them love it. Unfortunately, the Democrats also didn't care enough, as they didn't prosecute him properly and promptly after the January 6th fiasco. And they didn't care to hold a primary to let the voters choose a candidate they liked the most, who would reasonably have the best chance to defeat Trump in 2024. The Democratic Party's network of elites picking candidates, not pursuing policies that help the American people, advocating for war, etc., are primarily why we have Trump right now. And secondarily, because there's a hell of a lot of people in the United States who somehow want Trump.
I take this amendment from Andy Ogles very seriously, and you should too. Because even if the goal of the resolution is to own the libs, or even if the goal of the resolution is for Ogles to just suck up to the God King and get some points that way, it will nonetheless have the effect of normalizing us to the idea of Donald Trump staying in office past a second term.
And I don't take the resolution for this amendment seriously because it has no chance of passing, and there's nothing illegal about introducing such a resolution. In fact, it's been done before 54 times in different ways, and members of both parties have advocated for it. I'm glad the 22nd Amendment is in place, and there's no reason to believe it will be rescinded anytime soon. I have no idea what Brian means by this normalizing us to the idea of Trump staying past a second term. We pretty much know how he gets down after what he did on January 6th. The only legal way for him to stay longer after this term is that an amendment gets passed, and that is not going to happen. In terms of him staying on illegally, I don't see a pathway for that to happen, but I suppose if it did happen, that would mean our entire system from top to bottom has failed. In which case, what the hell do you want us to do about it right now?